Hello and welcome to Magical Travel Adventure. I am Lauren, your host, and today we are going to be talking about Disney's resort of Port Orleans French Quarter. So, if you are new here, hello, I am Lauren. I am a travel advisor specializing in Disney destinations, Universal Studios, and cruising, specifically Alaskan cruising. And today I am here to talk to you about one of the resorts at Disney World. So that's in Florida. And this is French Quarter. So, what is kind of confusing sometimes is Port Orleans has actually two resorts. One is French Quarter, the one we're talking about today, and the other one is Riverside, which I have previously talked about in another video. So, you can go and check that out. That will be below in the show notes too if you want to go check that out. So let's get into it. I am trying to do all the resorts. So if you want to look at other resorts, I do have you can check those out also. I am going with them slowly, one by one. So check those out. So here we are at Port Orleans French Quarter. When you go inside, this is sort of the entryway. If you go to the right, there's guest services. And if you go to the left, there's food options, which we will get into. So French Quarter, like I mentioned before, is really two resorts, or Port Orleans is two resorts. French Quarter is one part of it. So if you see up here, that's Riverside. I could not get it all in. Riverside is much larger. And over here is French Quarter. There is a North Quarter and a South Quarter. And if you can see, it's along a river here. Now, you can walk over to French Quarter and use the facilities that are there. You can go and eat there. You can do whatever you want. There is a boat that does go back and forth here, but it also goes to Disney Springs, so it's not always best to do that way. Make sure you get on the right boat so you're not going all the way to Disney Springs and then going back to French Quarter and then Riverside. But this is one of the options. So there is one main building that houses everything like the food, the check-in area, the luggage services. And then you would leave that area to go to one of these buildings, which is your room. These rooms are motel style, meaning when you open your door, you are outside. So be aware of that when you are there. Only typically in Disney World, only the deluxes have internal hallways when you are staying at those resorts. So, some of the basics is French Quarter is a moderate resort. They have standard rooms and they don't have any like suites. There's no club level here. They do have different views at different times, like water view and things like that. So, just be aware of that. They have ones that are closer to the main building that you can also get. So, prices will vary there, but a standard room inside the room is pretty much the same in all the rooms. Now, what's a little different about this resort is it doesn't have all the basic standard things that every resort has. So, in most moderates, there is a quick service and a table service restaurant, but at French Quarter, there is only a quick service and then a lounge. I put it experience because it's like a lounge slash cafe. Now, there's also only one pool. Typically, at most places, there are more than one pool, but French Quarter is one of the resorts that has only one pool. Now, to get from French Quarter to go to the parks, bus is your only option. The boat transportation will take you to Disney Springs and to Riverside if you would like, which is the sister resort. So some of the amenities that we talk about all the time that are at all the resorts are there is a bell service front desk, complimentary transportation to the parks, quick service dining, multiple pools, although this one only has one. And at that pool, there is like a small drink foodish area. So that's an option. There's arcades, playground, gift shop, and then activities at the resort. So that happens at all the resorts. It's not like specific to any one resort. French Quarter is just a little different where it only has the one pool. So this is just an option of what a standard room would look like at French Quarter. They all pretty much look like the same. They have the 2 queen beds, the double sinks, the toilet, and then a shower bathtub. There are options for a king bed, but that's something that you have to book when you're booking. So the quick service dining is Sasagula Floatworks and Food Factory. I always stumble over that name. So this is a really great location. It has your basic quick service. You can mobile order if you want to mobile order from your room and then pick it up as you're walking towards it. And it's in the main building when you first come in. Now, the Scat Club Cafe Lounge is Cafe Day Lounge at night. And it's not really the exact same spot. I guess it is kind of the exact same spot. But in the morning, it opens around 6 a.m. and you can get like coffee and stuff. And the most famous beignets. So beignets are at French Quarter. If you've ever heard people talk about these Disney beignets, they are at French Quarter, this resort at Disney World, and you can get them in the Scat Cat Club Cafe. So you can order them there. At nighttime, it does turn more loungy and you can order drinks and things like that. So a lot of people hang out here. This is like kind of like a fun place to hang out. So, I mean, I always love going there. So just know that if you are going there. They also have a standard gift shop that is pretty standard at all the resorts. This is Jackson Square Gifts and Desires. And it has specific Port Orleans stuff in it. And then it has Disney merchandise. There is a little like sundry stuff, but not like a ton. But it is an option also here. And that again is in the main building. So the pool area here, this is when you get to a moderate level at Disney World, there are pools at the resort. So at a value resort, there are just pools. At moderate and deluxe, you will have pools that have slides in them. So this is the slide at the pool area. It's very cool. I think it's very well themed. I love it. I am a water slide person, so no matter what resort I stay at, I always want to take the water slide. So love this one. It's one of the good ones. And then there is also a kids splash pad area that is in front of that pool, closer to the main building. And there's also a playground there too. So this is also a fun place to be and just kind of a fun place to hang out. Great for a resort day or a midday rest if you are going to Disney World. So like I said before, there is bus transportation to the park. So that's to Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom. There is a boat launch if you walked directly out the main building all the way until you hit water, then you would get to this boat launch and it would bring you either to Riverside or to Disney Springs. It is a very popular way to travel to Disney Springs, so just be aware of that. But it's also like a very beautiful ride. You get to go, I would say it's about maybe 10 minutes, a 10-minute boat ride, maybe 15 ride to Disney Springs. But it's very calm, it's very casual. You get to go by the tree houses, which is another resort that we'll get into later in this series, but it's just like a really fun place to go by. Now, what I will say about the bus transportation here is that French Quarter has its own buses. So you can go on the bus and you would not be sharing a bus. However, sometimes there are extra buses that go to French Quarter that additionally also go to Riverside. So sometimes they'll pick you up at French Quarter and then go through all of Riverside, pick up people. There are 4 bus stops there and then go to the parks. So you need to be aware of that when you are staying here, that sometimes you do share the bus with people from Riverside. You are always going to be the first stop, but that also means that you can maybe have to go all the way through Riverside before you're getting anywhere. You don't always know when you get on the bus that that is going to happen. What I will say is when they're picking you up from the parks, French Quarter for some reason has its own bus, and Riverside sometimes shares a bus with French Quarter. Again, French Quarter is always going to be the first drop-off spot. So you're sharing, but really Riverside would be the one that would have more of an issue because they're going to be either the last on where they're going to have to stand or don't make the bus. And when they're going back, there's more French Quarter buses than Riverside buses going. So just be aware of that and know that ahead of time. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons. So some of the pros is French Quarter is a much smaller resort. It's one of the smallest resorts on property. It's very manageable to walk around with. The beignets is a huge thing at French Quarter. A lot of people talk about the beignets. They want to have the beignets and eat the beignets and come and visit just for the beignets. So just know that that is one of the big things that people come for. It's easy to get to Disney Springs. That boat transportation is wonderful. It is very reliable and it's consistent, so that's good. Your buses are also very consistent. Every time I've been there, French Quarter seems to have the most buses that are the most consistent, and that is absolutely amazing. It's also walking distance to Riverside, and Riverside, they have carriage rides. There are bikes that you can rent there. So there's different offerings that you can go over to Riverside and kind of enjoy. Now, some of the cons is there's no table service restaurant. So if you like to sit down and eat, there is not an option. You could go over to Riverside, but it's going to be a little bit of a walk or a wait for the bus. Like I discussed some before, you do sometimes share a bus with Riverside. So you're not always going to have your own dedicated buses, and you won't always know before you get on the bus. You are further away from the parks. You're over in that Disney Springs area, so you're not really close to any park, which isn't a big deal. It just might take you a few more minutes to get to the parks being on the bus. Again, I always consider this a con, but if you need to walk outside and it's raining and you just want food and you have to leave your hotel room to go to the main building, that sometimes can get a little hard, especially if you have small kids or if you have mobility issues. It's really annoying that you have to get soaking wet to get out of your building and go in to get food in the main building. So just be aware of that. For some people, it doesn't matter. Some people, it does matter a lot. So take that into consideration. So French Quarter, some reasons I think you should stay is when it's super busy everywhere else. The big groups do not ever stay at French Quarter. So if there's like teams or large conventions, they're not staying at French Quarter. So it's really more just Disney families, Disney people staying at French Quarter. And that can make a difference for a lot of people at the resort. I couldn't put this into words, but if you're looking for something that is not like screaming, I'm at Disney World, or has like a Mickey in every single location, this is a great resort for you. Like if you want less, a lot of times kids that struggle with having a lot of stuff and a lot of stimuli around, this is a resort that I recommend because it's just quieter. Like there's bright colors and the pool area is themed, but beyond that, like everything isn't so like Disney loud in your face. So this is a much calmer resort for people who want that type of a resort. Again, it's also more it's a slower paced resort. And if you've ever stayed at like a value resort, it always feels like you're supposed to be running. Like I always say that. Like I stay at Pep Century sometimes because it's my son's absolute favorite resort. And I just feel like sometimes I'm always supposed to be running. Like that's the rule. Like you have to be running. For some reason, you're at a value resort. And for some reason, there's always that rush. Like, got to get it all in, got to do everything. French Quarter, it's like, okay, yeah, let's walk over here now. Like, okay. And like having that calming atmosphere can really help if you've been in the parks all day and you just kind of want to relax. So I also always ask my clients information on what they want to say. So they always say it's a quiet resort. That's always their number one thing. It's very easy to get around. There are only I would say one or two buildings where you feel like you're really far away. A lot of them you feel much closer to in the resort. and it's very easy to get around. I find the buses are very prompt. I think because buses are your only option to the parks, they are much more prompt than if you're in another location where there's a monorail or the Skyliner, or you can walk. So this is also very helpful. I've also, every time I've stayed there, it never feels crowded. And my clients have stayed there in the height of like April break season. And they're always like, yeah, it didn't seem like there were a lot of people there. And meanwhile, the resort is sold out. So it definitely doesn't feel like overcrowded like some other places. So you might want to enjoy that. I also, I mean, my clients love it, but I also love the ride to Disney Springs. I think that that is such a fun way to go to Disney Springs by taking the boat there. And it's just kind of relaxing, and you get to see so much there on the boat. So, all right. So that will do that for French Quarter. So I hope that gave you some information on Disney's French Quarter. I hope you understand that French Quarter is separate from Riverside. It's really hard to talk about because they call it Port Orleans French Quarter and Port Orleans Riverside. So I totally understand if you are still confused, but just know they're two separate resorts. So French Quarter is that smaller, quieter resort. French Quarter is a larger resort. They have different things like the royal rooms, and they have a sit down dining area there. So, one big resort. You don't really share a lot of stuff except your boat transportation to Disney Springs, and then every once in a while the buses, and you can walk between the two resorts. I would say the walk between the two resorts is probably about a half a mile. I think it's very doable, but if it's super hot out or if it's raining, it's probably not doable at that point. So hopefully that will help you. But this is definitely a quieter resort if that's what you're looking for. Again, my information is all below if you need help booking your next Disney World vacation or your Universal or Alaska vacation. And I hope to see you next time on Magical Travel Adventure. Bye.